Have you ever noticed how some people start losing interest the moment you begin believing in yourself? When you were uncertain, they were always there, offering help, sharing opinions, pretending to care. But once you find your voice, their energy shifts. They go silent, distant, maybe even sarcastic. It's not your confidence that bothers them. It's the mirror it holds up to their insecurity. It's like a lamp in a dim room. Everyone loves its light until it becomes bright enough to show the cracks in the walls. Or think of a bird they were happy to feed as long as it stayed in the cage. The moment it spreads its wings, they call it ungrateful for wanting to fly. That's what happens when you stop living by their approval. They mistake your freedom for arrogance. The truth is, not everyone wants to see you strong. Some people thrive when you doubt yourself because your uncertainty keeps them comfortable. But the moment you stop apologizing for your growth, you remove their control. That's when they pull back, not because you've changed, but because they can't influence who you're becoming. So how do you protect your self-belief when the world quietly tries to chip away at it? Stay until the end. Because once you understand how they do it, you'll never let anyone shake your confidence again. Let's get started. Number 1. They constantly undermine your confidence. Let's talk about one of the most subtle yet powerful ways people try to bring you down. They constantly undermine your confidence. These are the people who never openly insult you, but always find a way to make you doubt yourself. They question your decisions, second-guess your ideas, and treat your achievements like they happened by luck. It's not obvious at first. It feels like they're just being realistic or concerned. But over time, their words start to plant seeds of self-doubt that grow quietly in the back of your mind. You share an idea, and they say, "Are you sure that'll work?" You celebrate a success, and they shrug. "Yeah, but anyone could have done that." You make a choice for yourself, and they counter with, "I just don't think that's a smart move." At first, you might even appreciate their input, but little by little, you start questioning yourself, your ability, your instincts, your worth, and that's exactly their goal. Here's the truth. They're not trying to help you think clearly. They're trying to make you think less of yourself. Undermining is their weapon of choice because it's quiet, calculated, and easy to disguise as honesty. They feed off your self-doubt because it makes them feel more in control. The weaker your confidence, the stronger their influence over you. This is where Stoic wisdom cuts through the noise. Marcus Aurelius once said, "He who angers you controls you." Maintain your center. In other words, the moment you allow someone else's words to shake your sense of self, you hand them power over your mind. The Stoics believe that no one can truly harm your peace unless you allow them to, and that includes those who chip away at your confidence under the guise of advice. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Emily, had a co-worker who seemed friendly but was always subtly critical. Whenever Emily presented an idea, this co-worker would smile and say, "That's interesting, but I don't think management will go for it." When Emily received praise from their boss, the co-worker would say, "You got lucky this time." It wasn't outright cruelty. It was a steady stream of quiet doubt. Over time, Emily began to hold herself back, double-checking every move she made. Until one day she realized the truth. Her co-worker wasn't giving feedback. She was manipulating her confidence to keep her small. So how do you deal with people like this? First, recognize their pattern. Once you see the game, it loses its power. Second, stop seeking validation from them. You don't need approval from those who thrive on your insecurity. And third, anchor yourself in your own truth. When you know who you are and what you stand for, no amount of subtle criticism can shake you. At the end of the day, confidence isn't about being loud, it's about being grounded. You don't need to prove your strength to anyone. You just need to stop giving power to those who want to see you doubt it. Number 2, they disguise insults as advice. Let's talk about one of the most deceptive ways people try to bring down your self-belief. They disguise insults as advice. These are the people who pretend to care, but their words carry a sharp edge. On the surface, they sound supportive, like they're offering guidance or wisdom, but underneath, their tone cuts deep. They'll say things like, "I'm just being honest," or "I'm only telling you this because I care." But honesty without empathy isn't truth. It's cruelty disguised as concern. Here's the truth. Their words aren't meant to help you improve. They're meant to make you doubt yourself. It's a form of manipulation wrapped in politeness. They say things like, "You're good, but I don't think you're ready for something that big," or "You're pretty confident for someone with so little experience." It sounds harmless, even kind, but it plants a seed of insecurity that grows every time you think about it. That's the power of a disguised insult. It leaves no proof, no clear attack, just a lingering feeling that maybe they're right. And that's exactly what they want. Because if they can make you question yourself while pretending to be on your side, they can control how you see yourself. It's not confrontation they seek, it's quiet dominance. This is where Stoic wisdom cuts through their game. Seneca once said, "Mockery is the shield of the weak." People who hide their cruelty behind honesty aren't strong. They're insecure. They mock, belittle, and disguise it as advice because they lack the courage to face their own shortcomings. Stoicism teaches us that true strength lies in control of our emotions, our words, and our reactions. When someone tries to cut you down under the guise of guidance, you don't need to argue or defend yourself. You simply need to see their words for what they are, a reflection of them, not you. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Daniel, had a mentor who constantly disguised criticism as wisdom. Whenever Daniel achieved something, the mentor would smile and say, "That's great, but don't let it get to your head." Or when Daniel shared a new idea, he'd say, "It's interesting, but maybe aim for something more realistic next time." It was subtle, but consistent. Over time, Daniel noticed a pattern. This wasn't advice, it was control. The man didn't want Daniel to grow too confident, because confident people don't stay small. And small was exactly how he wanted him to feel. Once Daniel recognized it, he stopped internalizing those words. He realized he didn't need to shrink to make someone else feel comfortable. So how do you handle people who hide their envy behind honesty? First, listen to the intention, not just the tone. Are they helping you grow, or are they trying to make you doubt yourself? Second, stop giving weight to every opinion. Not every voice deserves space in your mind. And third, hold your ground quietly. You don't need to defend yourself against false concern. The truth will reveal itself through your results. At the end of the day, real advice uplifts you. It doesn't humiliate you. If someone's honesty makes you feel small, remember, strong people encourage, weak people disguise envy as wisdom. Stay centered, stay calm, and let your progress silence their mockery. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 3, They compare you to others. Let's talk about one of the oldest tricks people use to weaken your self-belief. They compare you to others. It's subtle, disguised as motivation, but it's meant to make you feel small. They'll say things like, "Why can't you be more like her?" Or, "He's already ahead of you, you should catch up." At first, it sounds like they're pushing you to improve, but if you look closely, their words don't inspire. They wound. They plant the idea that no matter what you do, you're never quite enough. Here's the truth. Comparison is their way of making you feel smaller while pretending to motivate you. People who constantly compare you to others aren't trying to help you grow. They're trying to control how you see yourself. They know that when you measure your worth by someone else's achievements, you'll never feel secure. Because there's always someone richer, more successful, more talented. And the more you chase that illusion of enough, the more power they have over your mind. This is where Stoic wisdom brings clarity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Never value yourself by comparison, but by your own reason." The Stoics believe that true peace and self-belief come from within, not from how we measure up to others. When you base your worth on comparison, you're surrendering your control. You stop focusing on your own growth and start living in someone else's shadow. The wise know that growth isn't a race. It's a journey that looks different for everyone. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Sarah, had a friend who constantly compared her to others. If Sarah got a promotion, her friend would say, "That's great, but didn't Emily get one too? And hers was higher, right?" When Sarah bought her first home, the same friend smiled and said, "It's cute, but you know John's place has a pool." It was constant, and it started to wear her down. Every time Sarah achieved something, it didn't feel like a win. It felt like a reminder that someone else was doing better. But one day, Sarah realized something powerful. Her friends' comparisons had nothing to do with her. They came from insecurity. Her friend couldn't celebrate others because she measured her own worth the same way, by comparison. Once Sarah stopped playing that game, she found peace. She started focusing on her own path, her own growth, and for the first time in years, she felt free. So how do you handle people like this? First, recognize that their comparisons are not reflections of your worth. They're projections of their own insecurity. Second, stop engaging in the race. Every time you compare yourself to someone else, you're abandoning your own journey. And third, practice gratitude for your own progress. When you're focused on your path, someone else's success stops feeling like a threat. It becomes inspiration instead. At the end of the day, comparison is the thief of peace. Those who constantly compare are trapped in their own insecurity, always chasing someone else's reflection. But the wise, they rise above it. Measure your life by your own growth, not by someone else's shadow, and you'll never feel behind again. Number 4, they highlight your flaws, never your effort. Let's talk about one of the most damaging tactics used by people who secretly want to weaken your self-belief. They highlight your flaws, but never your effort. These are the people who act like they're keeping you humble, but what they're really doing is keeping you small. The moment you succeed, they rush to point out what you could have done better. The moment you make progress, they remind you of the mistakes along the way. It's never, "Well done." It's always, "You missed a spot." They claim they're just being honest or realistic, but their honesty is selective. They only notice what's wrong when it comes to you. Here's the truth. When success threatens them, they magnify your mistakes to keep you grounded beneath them. People like this fear your progress because it forces them to confront their own lack of growth. So instead of celebrating your achievements, they focus on finding flaws in them. They'll say things like, "That's great, but don't get too confident," or "Sure, you did well, but let's see if you can keep it up." On the surface, it sounds like constructive feedback, but underneath, it's envy dressed as wisdom. Their goal isn't to help you improve, it's to make sure you never feel secure enough to surpass them. This is where Stoic philosophy offers a clear perspective. Seneca once said, "The envious are pained by the success of others." And that's exactly what's happening here. People who highlight your flaws instead of your effort are revealing their envy, not their insight. They can't celebrate you because your growth exposes their stagnation. The Stoics taught that envy is a form of suffering. It belongs to the weak, not the wise. And when someone tries to project that suffering onto you, your best response is calm detachment. You don't need to defend yourself against jealousy, you only need to rise above it. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him James, worked tirelessly to turn his small business into something successful. When things finally started going well, one of his old friends said, "Yeah, but don't forget, you got lucky with timing." Every time James achieved something, this friend found a way to downplay it. If James hit a milestone, the friend would respond with, "That's cool, but you know it could have been done better." At first, James tried to take it as constructive criticism, but over time he realized it wasn't feedback. It was bitterness. His friend wasn't pointing out flaws to help him grow. He was doing it to keep him grounded. So James's success didn't make him feel small. So how do you deal with people like this? First, stop seeking validation from them. You don't need praise from those who resent your progress. Second, separate genuine feedback from disguised envy. Real feedback comes from care. It helps you rise. Envy disguises itself as advice, but its intent is to pull you down. And finally, protect your peace. You don't owe explanations to anyone who only shows up to criticize. At the end of the day, people who only see your flaws reveal more about themselves than about you. Their inability to celebrate your effort is a reflection of their own insecurity. So keep growing quietly, keep evolving, and let your results speak louder than their envy. Because the wise don't highlight flaws, they acknowledge effort, respect progress, and rise above jealousy. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a "thank God" and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 5. They act superior when you improve. Let's talk about a behavior that often reveals more than words ever could. When people act superior the moment you start to improve. At first, they seem supportive, cheering you on when you're struggling or still finding your footing. But as soon as you start to grow, as soon as your confidence and results begin to show, their attitude changes. They become distant, dismissive, or suddenly unimpressed. They might say things like, "Oh, I've been doing that for years," or "It's not that big of a deal, everyone's improving." It's subtle, but it's designed to keep your confidence in check, to remind you that, in their eyes, you're still beneath them. Here's the truth. Your progress disturbs their comfort. People who thrive on feeling superior can only maintain that illusion as long as you're behind them. The moment you rise, you threaten their sense of identity. They're not used to seeing you as an equal, so they pretend indifference, acting as if your achievements don't matter. But behind that calm facade is discomfort, because your growth highlights their stagnation. Instead of celebrating your progress, they downplay it to protect their ego. This is where Stoic wisdom cuts to the core. Epictetus once said, "The man who cannot admire another's virtue has none himself." That means those who can't celebrate the progress of others reveal their lack of inner strength and virtue. A wise person doesn't feel threatened by someone else's growth. They're inspired by it. But a person driven by ego will always see your improvement as competition. They'll use superiority as a mask to hide their fear of being overshadowed. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Michael, used to look up to his older cousin, Jake. Jake was always the one who had everything figured out. A good job, confidence, influence. Michael admired him for years. But when Michael started his own business and began succeeding, Jake's attitude shifted. Suddenly, Jake acted uninterested. If Michael shared an achievement, Jake would shrug and say, "That's great, but let's see how long it lasts." If others praised Michael, Jake would change the subject. It took Michael a while to see it. Jake wasn't superior, he was threatened. Michael's growth forced Jake to face the reality that he'd stopped growing himself. So how do you handle people like this? First, don't take their arrogance personally. It's not about you, it's about their discomfort with change. Second, don't seek approval from those who feel threatened by your progress. Their validation will always be conditional, given only when it keeps you beneath them. And third, keep your focus forward. Your growth doesn't need their acknowledgement. It needs your consistency. At the end of the day, true strength isn't measured by being above others, but by lifting others up, even as you rise. Those who act superior when you improve are revealing their insecurity, not their wisdom. Let them pretend. They'll stay where they are while you keep evolving. Because the wise don't compete with your progress. They respect it, learn from it, and rise alongside it. Number 6. They laugh when you dream big. Let's talk about one of the most revealing reactions you'll ever see from someone who secretly feels threatened by you. They laugh when you dream big. You share an idea, a vision, a goal that excites you, and instead of encouragement, you're met with smirks, jokes, or disbelief. They might say, "That's cute, but be realistic," or "You doing that." They laugh not because your dream is foolish, but because it's something they could never imagine for themselves, and deep down, that scares them. Here's the truth. They fear your potential, so they ridicule your ambition before it exposes their mediocrity. When you dream beyond what they believe is possible, it reminds them of what they settled for. Your courage highlights their complacency. Your vision reflects their lack of one. So instead of confronting their own stagnation, they try to make you question yours. Mockery becomes their defense mechanism. It's easier for them to laugh at your dream than to admit that they stopped chasing theirs long ago. This is where Stoic wisdom comes alive. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If you would be great, expect to be misunderstood." Greatness often looks foolish to small minds. People who live within the limits of fear cannot comprehend those who act out of purpose. The Stoics believed that external approval is irrelevant when your actions align with your inner reason. So when others laugh at your ambition, see it as confirmation, not of your absurdity, but of your growth. Their ridicule doesn't define your potential, it exposes theirs. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Ethan, always dreamed of starting his own tech company. When he told his co-workers, they laughed. One said, "You really think you can compete with big companies? That's adorable." Another joked, "Don't quit your day job just yet." But Ethan didn't argue. He quietly went to work. He spent nights building his idea, learning, failing, and improving. Years later, his company not only launched, but began thriving. The same people who once laughed now pretended they'd always believed in him. That's how it works. Mockery comes before respect. The laughter you hear today often turns into applause once your success becomes undeniable. So how do you handle people who laugh at your dreams? First, stop explaining yourself. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your vision. Second, turn their laughter into fuel. Let it remind you of what you're building, not of what they doubt. And third, protect your energy. Share your dreams only with those who water them, not those who try to drown them in sarcasm. At the end of the day, every great idea looks unrealistic until it's achieved. People laughed at inventors, artists, and philosophers who dared to see beyond the ordinary. But those who stayed grounded in their purpose turned mockery into legacy. So when someone laughs at your dream, smile back, not in anger, but in quiet confidence, because their laughter is proof that your dream is bigger than their courage to chase one. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 7, they question your intentions. Let's talk about one of the most exhausting ways people try to destroy your self-belief. They twist your motives. No matter what you do, they find a way to frame it negatively. Your discipline becomes arrogance. Your confidence becomes ego. Your honesty becomes cruelty. They can't accept that your actions come from integrity, so they distort them to fit their own insecurities. When you speak truth, they say you're showing off. When you set boundaries, they call you cold. When you choose peace, they label you selfish. And slowly, if you're not careful, you start to wonder if maybe they're right. Here's the truth. They question your intentions because your authenticity threatens their illusion. People who lack self-awareness feel uncomfortable around those who live with purpose. Your clarity reminds them of their confusion. Your discipline exposes their excuses. So instead of confronting their own shortcomings, they twist your motives to make themselves feel superior. It's their defense mechanism. If they can't rise to your level, they'll try to drag you down to theirs. This is where Stoic wisdom brings deep perspective. Seneca once said, "To the corrupted mind, virtue always appears as vanity." In other words, people who don't live with integrity can't recognize it when they see it. To them, kindness looks manipulative and confidence looks prideful because they judge your heart through the lens of their own insecurity. But the Stoics remind us that what others think of your motives is irrelevant. What matters is whether your intentions are rooted in virtue. When you act from wisdom, justice, courage, and self-control, you don't need anyone's validation. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Laura, was known for her honesty. She spoke directly, worked hard, and lived with purpose. But one of her colleagues couldn't handle that clarity. Whenever Laura spoke up in meetings, this colleague would roll her eyes and say, "There she goes again, acting like she knows everything." When Laura stayed late to help others, the same person whispered, "She's just doing it to impress the boss." No matter what Laura did, her intentions were twisted. At first, it hurt. She started second-guessing herself, wondering if she was coming across the wrong way. But then she realized something important. This person's opinions didn't come from insight. They came from envy. Laura's integrity wasn't the problem. It was the mirror that exposed what the other person lacked. So, how do you handle people who constantly question your intentions? First, don't defend your goodness to those determined to misunderstand it. you can't reason with insecurity. Second, stay rooted in your principles. Let your consistency speak for you. The truth doesn't need to shout, it endures. And finally, remember that misunderstanding is often the tax of authenticity. The louder your integrity, the more uncomfortable it makes the dishonest. At the end of the day, your purpose doesn't need approval. People may twist your motives, but they can't rewrite your truth. The Stoics taught us that peace isn't found in being understood. It's found in being unwavering. So let them talk, let them twist, let them doubt. Because the moment you stop explaining yourself and start living your truth, their words lose all power. Number 8. They disappear when you start believing in yourself. Let's talk about one of the clearest signs that someone was never truly in your corner. They disappear the moment you start believing in yourself. When you were unsure, they were always around, offering advice, showing concern, even pretending to support you. But their support was conditional. It only existed as long as you doubted yourself. The moment you began standing tall, trusting your instincts, and making decisions from confidence rather than fear, they started pulling away. Suddenly they became busy, distant, or unavailable. Their silence wasn't random, it was revealing. Here's the truth. Their silence is the proof. Your self-belief removes their control. These people never thrived on your strength. They thrived on your uncertainty. As long as you were questioning yourself, they felt powerful. Your dependence on their opinions made them feel needed, superior, and in control. But when you started believing in yourself, when you stopped seeking validation and started trusting your own voice, their influence crumbled. They didn't know how to handle your confidence because your growth exposed their manipulation. This is where Stoic wisdom brings light. Epictetus once said, "The wise man stands firm, unmoved by praise or blame." The Stoics taught that real strength lies in inner stability, being grounded in who you are, regardless of who supports you or who walks away. When you build self-belief, you no longer chase approval. You no longer bend under judgment or seek comfort in validation, and that terrifies those who only knew how to hold power over the weaker version of you. Your confidence doesn't just free you, it threatens those who relied on your doubt to feel secure. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Natalie, used to lean heavily on a close friend for advice. Every decision, big or small, she'd run by her. This friend loved playing the role of the guide. But as Natalie grew stronger, working on herself, setting boundaries, and learning to trust her own instincts, things changed. When Natalie started saying, "I've got this," her friend grew cold. Calls went unanswered, texts were ignored. Eventually, the friendship faded. Not because Natalie did something wrong, but because her self-belief made her friend feel irrelevant. That's when Natalie learned something profound. Some people don't love you. They love feeling needed by your insecurities. So how do you deal with people who disappear once you start believing in yourself? First, don't chase them. Their absence isn't a loss, it's a clearing. They're making space for people who respect your growth, not resent it. Second, stay grounded in your confidence. Don't dim your light to bring them back. The right people will never ask you to shrink. And third, understand this truth. Self-belief is self-protection. The stronger your inner trust, the fewer manipulative voices can reach you. At the end of the day, when you truly believe in yourself, you'll lose some people, but you'll find peace. The ones who disappear were never meant to walk beside the confident version of you. Let them go without bitterness, because the Stoics were right. The wise stand firm, unmoved by who claps or who leaves. Your belief in yourself will attract better company than your doubt ever did. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.